Good morning to all the teachers, administrators of Cordova Public College, and to our instructor in Introduction of Linguistics, Dr. Von Nunez. Good morning, sir. And to all the watchers of this video, good morning. I am here to present my answer of the given questions about Introduction of Linguistics written by Ralph Fasold and Jeff Connor Lincoln. The first question is how language contributes to human leverage or advantage compared to other species. The human species consists of development and adaptation of various tools to meet a broad range of needs. Think of the whale, the domestication of animals, the steam engine, computers, and the internet. The development and the refinement of these and all other tools could not have been without language. The human capacity for self-awareness and abstract thought is facilitated by language, if not dependent upon it. The ability to transfer information to discuss the meaning of events and possible outcomes or alternative actions to share feelings and ideas, all these are impossible without language. The human species develop a vocal trait flexible enough to make a wide range of distinguishable sounds and the ability to perceive differences among the sounds. But the most important part, the human species develop the ability to use the sounds and system which could communicate meaning. The second question is differentiate the different properties of language from one another. The modularity, constituency of recursion, discreteness, productivity, arbitrariness, reliance on context, and variability. The difference between each of the properties is that in modularity is a linguistic belief that language is modular system. The concept of modularity are the degree to which the lexicon, syntax, and other neurocognitive domains operate independently of one another, has played an important role in theorizing about brain architecture and function, both in development and in adulthood. The basic principle of modularity is that systems should be built from cohesive, loosely coupled components or modules, which means systems should be made up of different components that are united and work together in an efficient way, such as components have a well-defined function. Constituency and recursion. Constituency and recursion organize into constituents, allowing more complex units to enter structure where simpler ones are also possible. Being composed of constituents gives language a balance of structure and flexibility, and also allows language to be recursive. Recursion is a property of language which allows grammatical processes to be applied repeatedly, combining constituents to produce an infinite variety of sentences of indefinite length. The recursiveness of language has profound implications. It means that no one can learn a language by memorizing all the sentences of that language. So there must be some other explanation for how human beings are able to learn them. The human brain is finite, but recursiveness means that it is capable of producing and understanding an infinite number of sentences. Recursive rules can thus generate constructions of arbitrary complexity. Constituency and recursion are some of most fundamental concepts in linguistics. As we saw above, both are defined in terms of relations between symbols. Symbolic models of language processing therefore incorporate these properties via file. Discreteness. Discreteness is another property of all languages. The range of sound that human being can make is continuous, like a slide whistle. But all languages divide the continuous space of sound into discrete, incremental territories, just as most Western music divides the continuous range of pitch into discrete steps in a scale. Discreteness also shows itself in other modules of language, for example, meaning. The color spectrum is a clear example. Color variation is a continuum. Red shades through red-orange to yellow-orange to yellow and so on through the spectrum. But all languages divide the color spectrum into discrete categories. Discreteness means that boundary between linguistic symbol is clear, since the linguistic symbols are discrete. The claim of linguistic symbols can be segmented part by part until the smallest linguistic symbols are assigned. The property of language when each sound is treated as discrete is described as discreteness. For example, the English word tin word consists of three units, T-I-N. Speech units can be ordered and reordered, combined and split apart. Productivity. Productivity is another key feature of language. Languages can systematically combine the minimal units of meaning, called morphemes, into novel words whose meaning is nonetheless deducible from the interaction of its morphemic components. Productivity is one way in which languages change to meet the changing communicative needs of their speakers. The productivity of language comes from more than just the ability of speakers to coin new words. Sentence can become indefinite long by adding modifiers or by including one sentence in another, over and over again. Since languages place no limits on the use of this recursive process, and all the languages are potentially infinitely productive. Productivity in linguistic productivity is the degree to which speakers of a language use a particular grammatical process, especially in word formation. It compares grammatical processes that are infrequent, used to list frequency, use that the phenomenon that tend toward lexicalization. Arbitrariness is a property of sign languages as well as spoken language. It is important to remember that arbitrariness doesn't mean randomness. It means that, for example, the sound that one language uses and the principle by which they are combined are inherently no better or worse than those of any language. It means that the principle of one language for arranging words are inherently no better or worse than those of other. Arbitrariness in human language refers to the fact that the meaning of linguistic sign is not predictable from its word's form, nor is the word form dictated by its meaning or function. It is not possible to deduce the underlying meaning from its word form. Furthermore, there may be semantic change. For example, the word cocoa in Spanish, cook in English, kakuk in Hungarian, kakuk in German. They have the same meaning but different pronunciation and different spelling. There is only a small group of onomatopoeic words. Reliance on context. Reliance on context is a corollary of arbitrariness, of association between sound sequences and meanings or in the order of words in phrases as duality. Reliance on context is a crucial property of languages, not just figuring out of the meaning words like one and one, but in interpreting the meaning of entire utterances. The meaning of a sentence depends crucially on the context in which it is uttered. That context could be the sentence or sentences that immediately precede it, or it could be the broader physical or social circumstances in which the sentence is uttered. Variability. Variability is the language that people use varies depending on who's speaking and situation in which they're speaking. Variability is one of the most important and admirable properties of language. Variation, or also known as difference and diversity, is the essence of information. Without variation in light frequencies, there would be no sight. Without variation in sound frequencies, there would be no language and no music. Variability in language allows people to communicate far more than the semantics content of words and sentences they utter. The variability language is indexical. A large part of speech communities' culture is transacted through the medium of the language variation. Norms of appropriate language use help speakers to construct and negotiate their relations to each other. The example of variability is that if one person utters the sentence, John is a farmer, and another says the same thing except pronounces the word farmer as fama, then the difference is the accent. The last question is, what does this line mean? Language varieties differ because over time, they have adapted to the differing needs of their speech communities. Each language does things differently. The dominant group perceived to have higher status, and the less powerful groups are stigmatized as incorrect or bad. Do you agree or disagree about the statement? It means that some languages morphologically mark several verb tense, and some languages organize nouns into mini gender categories. Each language is equally functional at meeting the communicative needs of its own speech community. But sometimes, when two or more speech communities came into contact, one group will have more power, status, or economic resources than the others. And another is that language is always changing. We've seen that language changes across space and across social group. Language also varies across time. Generation by generation, pronunciation evolves, new words are borrowed or invented. The meaning of old word drifts, and morphology develops or decays. The rate of change varies, but whether the changes are faster or slower, they build up until the mother tongue becomes arbitrary, distant, and different. After 1,000 years, the original and new languages will not be mutually intelligible. After 10,000 years, the relationship will be essentially indistinguishable from the chance relationship between historically and related languages.